As Brian said, I'm going to go over technology integration myths and mysteries. So we're going to take a look at several different things about technology integration, what it is, what it isn't, how to do it, kind of just in general, kind of sum it up into a simple process. I'm going to begin by taking a look at a video here of some technology being used. So let's go ahead and start with that. Okay, so lots of different technology tools being used there, many of which we have in the district. So there's interactive whiteboards, there's document cameras, there was presentation tools, all kinds of different things being used in the video. Some really exciting lessons, some really interesting things being done, but the problem is it technology integration? And the reason why it's a problem is because who in those videos was using the technology? Teacher, only the teacher. And in many cases, that's what happens in a lot of the classrooms, is the teacher showcases the technology. They're up there using it. Maybe the kids get to use it in the instance of answering a question, or the instance of, like with the clicker system, they answer a question, or with the smartboard, they get up and select an answer. But unless they're using the tool to solve a problem, they really aren't integrating technology into the lesson. So a quick definition of technology integration is when students use technology to solve problems in the classroom. And so unless students are actually going and using the tools themselves to solve a classroom problem, whether it's to answer a math problem, whether it's to present what I learned when I read the chapter in the book, whatever it may be, if they're not answering a problem or coming up with a solution, technology integration isn't truly taking place. Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with those technology tools. Doesn't mean you shouldn't use those technology tools. They can be very interesting and engaging lessons, but it's not technology integration until students are producing a product. So some of the myths of technology integration that we run across regularly. The first one, there's not enough time to use technology in the classroom. I hear that a lot. There's not enough time. I'd use it, but I can't get enough time. It takes too much energy or effort to get this done. So the first thing is you don't have to teach the tool. Students in many cases already know how to use one or more tools. You don't have to teach them how to use a presentation tool. You don't have to teach them how to use a video camera. In many cases, the students already know that portion of it. They just don't know the content, or they're needing a methodology of presenting the content. So if you provide them with the tools, or even better, let them choose what tool they want to use, they can bring tools that you may not have even heard of to the table. But if they know how to use it, and they're capable with it, it won't matter. So allowing students the choice to choose the tool they want to use, to choose tools they already know how to use to solve the problem, will help with the time issue with technology integration, because you don't have to spend that time on teaching the students to use the tool itself. The next myth, there's not enough equipment available to do technology integration. Technology does not necessarily mean you have to do it in school. You can take that and offload it to homework time. So students can use the technology they have available outside of the classroom to do technology integration. So it doesn't necessarily necessitate you using classroom technology to do technology integration. So that's one strategy. The next strategy is the fact that we have more and more technology coming into the district. We have currently about 25,000 desktop machines in the district. We have just under 15,000 laptops in the district. And this next year we'll have about 11,000 iPads in the district. So between those things, the TLI grant and several other things are adding in a lot of technology capability to our district. So the availability of the tools is out there. And maybe it might take some intelligent scheduling and some manipulation of time and some flexibility there in order to get it, but that's one of the options. So being able to use the tools we have more effectively is one of the options available. Also, as Brian was saying early this morning, bring your own technology initiatives. A lot of the time, kids have access to tools at home. They have their own tools. They have tools that they could bring in, and it may not be a traditional tool. It may be something like the PSP that Brian had for his kid that they could bring in and use to do a Skype lesson. It might be their own iPod Touch. It might be something that you're not even used to using, but they could bring it in and solve a problem in class. And if it lets them actually solve that problem, it's a good use of the tool. Next myth. Not all students have access to technology outside of school. And while to some degree that's probably true, use of scheduling and or grouping of students will fix that problem. If you give them enough time, if you don't necessitate answering the problem or solving the problem tomorrow, I give you the assignment today, you have to have it done tomorrow. If you extend that time frame, or if you say, you know what, you're going to work in groups, that ups the chance that that student then has access to technology. So it doesn't mean that one student has the tool or not, but if your group does, you have the tool. Or if I have access to it over time, I can use it. I can get there. Of course, there's also the fact that most campuses open up their labs. You can use it before school, after school, during lunch. Also, there's the library and the public library. Those have technology available. So there's places you can go to get the technology. Also, when you think about the places you can go to get free internet resources, all the McDonald's in town, Starbucks. So even if you have a computer but you don't have internet, well, there's places you can go and get that, and they're usually not that far away. In downtown El Paso, we have the, what is it called? Digital El Paso, thank you, I've forgotten the term there. So you have places you can go to get internet access if that's the problem. So there are ways to solve that issue as well. So smartphones and tablets, I already mentioned that. They have access to these devices, and more of the things that you would do on a traditional computer can instead be done on these devices. Every day, there are hundreds of apps being put out for both iPhone, iPad, Android phones, and those apps are becoming more and more capable in what they can do. Myth number 4, students know more about technology than I do, so I really don't need to teach it to them. And while they may know the tools better and more intuitively than we do, who's showing them how to use them effectively? Who's teaching them how to use them responsibly? Things like Facebook and social networking that Andy was talking about earlier, and like Andy said, if we don't teach them how to use these tools safely, effectively, and usefully, who will? I mean, obviously they're using them anyway, so we need to be there. We need to be the people guiding them along the way. So then how do I integrate technology into my lessons? How do I get it done? I want to integrate technology. I'm eager to do it. How? What tools do I have to do that? So the first thing is we have a technology integration model. Tim's been doing a lot of presentations on this. It's the SAMR model. And that takes the lesson and anywhere from the early stages with substitution. And what I mean by early stages is the ease of translating lessons into technology lessons. So a substitution lesson is teaching the lesson essentially the same way, but instead using technology as the medium. So instead of doing this presentation I'm doing today with an overhead projector and overhead slides, this would be an example of something that's done through substitution. I'm using a PowerPoint. It's still slide projection in many ways. Now mine was probably a little bit more of an augmentation modification because I've got embedded video, and you couldn't do that with an old overhead projector and slides that way. But it's along those lines. All the way to a redefinition project. And a redefinition project is a project that cannot be done without the use of technology. And Ashton's presentation earlier with the video conferencing is an excellent example of that. Communicating with multiple schools at multiple points couldn't be done without the video conferencing equipment. And those kinds of lessons are a redefinition type project. So you have kind of a sliding scale of how much integration you're getting. How integrated is the lesson? And any point in the scale is a good thing. Now, the further you go is even better, but any point along the way is a good thing. So, what's the process of integrating technology? So let's kind of break it down into some simplified steps. The first step, you want to look at what is the expectation you have for the students. What do you want the students to get out of the lesson? And this is something teachers have to do already. Anytime they teach a lesson, before they give any kind of an assignment, they determine what they're expecting the knowledge of the student to be. The next thing is to say, well, what kind of a project is this going to be? How do I determine whether or not they've met that expectation? And project-based learning is something we're promoting already within the district. And so determining the type of project, and notice we're not putting the tool yet. We haven't even talked about what technology tool we're using. The tool comes out of the determination of what kind of a project we're doing. So if we say, well, this is going to be a presentation, so I want students to present their knowledge, then I might go back and say, well, what kind of tools will we use for a presentation? What kinds of tools would I use if I'm going to want students to produce some kind of a sign or a banner or something of that nature? So you have the project come first, then you determine what tool will enable me to complete that project. And you can enable students to choose at that point. If they know multiple tools that can solve that kind of a project, and maybe the tool they want to use is a traditional tool and not a technical tool. And sometimes that's good to have both options. They call it a tradigital approach. So it's traditional combined with digital. So you have that option at that point. And then finally, provide the students with guidelines. What is the minimum needs? It's a rubric. You show them exactly what you want them to get out of the project that they're completing. And so it's kind of, very much like any kind of project-based learning. It's a very simplified process. The only part that's slightly different is once you know what the project is, you then determine what kinds of technology tools can solve that problem. So here's some examples. So instead of in math doing a worksheet, instead you can have students solve math problems and then videotape their solutions and explain exactly how they solve that problem. This is nice because it also provides a resource for reteach. So once you have these student videos that have been created, you can go ahead and have them watch them as many times as needed for reteach. So here's an example.
Problem we have 4 x's on this side and a high value. On the other side, we have 2 x's and a 13. Now let's do the legal move. We take an x from each side and then another x from each side. Now we cannot do that legal move anymore, but you still do one more legal move. We will take the 5 values from each side. So we take this 5 and take this away, and this 13. Turn this 13 into an 8. So now we need to know 2 numbers that equal up to 8. So it must be 4 plus 4. The x's must be worth 4.
Okay, and so that's a student giving a simplified explanation of how to do a math problem. Now, if I'm a ELA student, if I'm a SPED student, And ideally, I need to watch this or get taught this material 10, 20 times in order to truly get that, to truly integrate that knowledge as my own. There's not going to be time in the classroom to teach it that many times. That's the unfortunate truth. So now having this video, I could put it on my teacher webpage. I can make it available to parents to watch and help their students with. I now have this as a resource that students can then use when they're doing their assignments, or when they just need to refresh before a test, or if my parent wants to help me with my homework, we can watch those together. And they don't have to be long. They can be short little things. And by having the students create them, first of all, the teacher doesn't have the workload of creating the video themselves, but second of all, you can grade those. They become graded assignments. You can take the best of them and host them on your webpage, and then you get student explanations as well as yours. So you get more than one teacher's point of view because you have the student as a teacher as well as your own teaching. So you have several different positives coming out of that. Another example project. So you create a model in a social studies classroom. Well, instead of creating a physical model, I can create a 3D model using something like Google SketchUp. So in the description of this project had the student designing a business for their social studies class. It was a 6th grade lesson, I believe. And that building he created, let me bring that back up here real quick. That building he created was his example of the project. And the nice thing when you do a Google SketchUp lesson, he built the building. The program allows you to actually build and construct the buildings. But a lot of the props that go around it, there's people, there's cars and things, those can be downloaded from the library. So you can make it as intricate a model as you like without having to spend lots and lots of time on all the little details. You can build your project, showcase your project, and as you can see, you can make a video of it to show what you want to display about your project, but you still, as the teacher, want all of the necessary components there. So if I wanted, in addition to this, the student to present a business model or information about the square footage of it, or any of that can be done. And SketchUp as a tool allows measurement, allows students to calculate, the square footage of a building. You can carpet it and say if the carpet costs this much, how much then would they have had to spend overall to carpet the building, or whatever the case may be. You can extend and expand these lessons as much as you might want that way. So the next example, and we've seen this already several times today, is using something like Blabberize to give a report. So you can take on the persona of characters and use a tool like Blabberize to give a report. And so this one here is a student giving a presentation on the planets. They're choosing Jupiter, and they're giving a presentation as Jupiter. Okay, so we're not going to take the time to watch all of it, but obviously they can present the facts they know about that topic. And if it's an animal, it's a biome, it's a scientist, it's whatever you want. In social studies or language arts, it could be famous historical figures, it could be authors, it could be characters from books. You could have them provide that information back that way. So this last one is using a tool, and I'm just going to skip through this because I'm already out of time, but Edmodo is an online discussion tool. It's kind of a Facebook for the classroom. So you could use something like Edmodo to hold classroom discussions. And the nice thing about doing a classroom discussion online with an online tool is once the discussion is done, there's still a record of the discussion you had. And the nice thing about that is often if we just have a classroom discussion in class, sometimes really great ideas, really great questions get asked and answered in class. But then after class, there's no record. And if a student was absent, or if a student just wants to go over it again, there is no way to go back over that. There is no way to capture that discussion again once it's already happened. But if you do it online, if you have an online discussion forum, all of that discussion is available for people to reread at a later date. So again, if I'm going to study for an exam or if I'm doing my homework and I want to go back over a discussion that was had in class, if I'm using an online discussion forum, for instance, Edmodo, I can go ahead and reread the transcript of that discussion, or if we did it through audio or anything else, re-listen to it or re-watch it if it was video. Then we have something that I can review in order to see what was discussed. Find those great questions and answers again. Bring up those great points one more time so that I understand better, again, what was being gone over. So ultimately, in the end, when you're looking at classroom technology and whether or not technology integration is taking place, ultimately, you want to see who is the one using the technology. It's fantastic when the teachers are using the resources we provide them. I love it when teachers are using smartboards, document cameras, those tools to really make use of those wonderful pieces of equipment that we've spent money on. That's great. But if students are never using the technology integration is not taking place. And that's when my team can come in to help. I mean, we can help teachers who are either reticent or not necessarily certain how to integrate technology. So we can come in and provide them that extra assistance. Okay? Thank you all.